The massive shadow fell across the Amazon rainforest at precisely 14:23 Greenwich Mean Time on a Tuesday that would forever change humanity's place in the universe. The Korthak mothership stretched 12 kilometers from bow to stern, its obsidian hull reflecting the green canopy below like a dark mirror. Smaller vessels, each the size of a city block, peeled away from the main craft and descended toward what the aliens had designated as primitive wilderness zones. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion's edge, his forearms crossed behind his back as he surveyed the tactical displays. The Korthak were a proud warrior race, standing nearly 3 meters tall with chitinous exoskeletons that had evolved on the harsh desert world of Korth Prime. Their civilization had conquered 47 star systems, and Earth was meant to be a simple addition to their empire. "Report, Subcommander Zekti," Vextar commanded, his voice a deep rumble that resonated through his throat chambers. "Initial reconnaissance confirms our intelligence, Commander," Zekti replied, manipulating holographic displays with practiced efficiency. "The humans have concentrated their military forces around their urban centers and industrial complexes. These vast green zones appear to be largely undefended wilderness. Our thermal scans show scattered primitive settlements, but no significant military presence." Vextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. "Fools. They protect their cities while leaving their resource-rich territories completely exposed. Deploy battle groups 7 through 12 to these jungle regions. We'll establish forward operating bases and strip mine the entire area before the humans even realize what's happening." The subcommander hesitated for a moment. "Sir, our xenobiological surveys indicate these jungle environments are unusually dense. The vegetation appears to interfere significantly with our standard sensor arrays." "Irrelevant," Vextar dismissed with a wave of his primary arm. "Our technology is vastly superior to anything these primitive mammals possess. What could possibly threaten battle group formations equipped with plasma cannons, energy shields, and atmospheric superiority fighters?" As the first wave of Korthak landing craft descended into the Amazon basin, neither Vextar nor his forces had any concept of what humanity called asymmetric warfare. The Korthak military doctrine was built around massive shows of force, overwhelming firepower, and the complete technological domination that had served them well against the various civilizations they'd conquered. Those previous enemies had met them in open battle, their fleets clashing in the void of space or across barren planetary surfaces. They had never encountered an enemy that would refuse to fight on their terms. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos crouched in the undergrowth 3 clicks south of the landing zone, watching through high-powered binoculars as the first Korthak dropships touched down in what had once been a cleared area used by illegal loggers. She'd been leading her Special Forces unit on a routine anti-narcotics operation when the aliens arrived, and now found herself in the unique position of being the closest military asset to the invasion force. "Jesus Christ," whispered Corporal Jackson beside her. "Look at the size of those things." The Korthak warriors emerging from their craft stood nearly 10 feet tall, their dark exoskeletons gleaming with built-in technology. Energy weapons hummed at their sides, and their movements were precise and coordinated. Maria counted at least 200 troops in the first wave, with more dropships approaching. "Santos to base," she spoke quietly into her encrypted comm. "This is Jaguar 6, priority flash traffic. I have eyes on the landing zone, requesting immediate extraction and full tactical download." The response crackled through her earpiece. "Jaguar 6, this is Thunderbase. Negative on extraction. All air assets grounded by unknown alien air superiority. You are ordered to maintain observation and gather intelligence. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." Maria exchanged glances with her 5-man team. They were deep reconnaissance specialists, trained for operations in the world's most challenging environments. Jackson was her demolitions expert, a wiry man from Tennessee who could build a bomb from fertilizer and watch parts. Kowalski handled communications and electronic warfare, while Chun was their medic and secondary sniper. Ramirez served as their indigenous warfare specialist, having grown up in these very jungles, and Thompson was their heavy weapons expert. "Copy, Thunderbase," Maria responded, maintaining observation. But even as she spoke, her mind was already working. These aliens had made a critical error. They'd landed in her jungle, the environment where she and her team had trained for years. Every vine, every sound, every smell was familiar territory. The Korthak had no idea they'd just walked into humanity's most dangerous classroom. Over the next 6 hours, Maria's team watched as the aliens established a perimeter and began unloading heavy equipment. The efficiency was impressive, but telling. The Korthak moved like conquerors who had never faced serious resistance. Their sentries stood in predictable patterns, their energy signatures blazing like beacons to anyone with the right equipment. "They're treating this like a peacekeeping operation," Jackson muttered, adjusting his scope. "Look how they're deploying. Standard occupation formation, minimal security protocols." Ramirez nodded grimly. "They don't understand the jungle yet. Watch how they're cutting down everything in straight lines, building their base like they're back home on some desert world." The aliens had indeed begun clearing vegetation in perfect geometric patterns, their energy weapons slicing through century-old trees like they were saplings. But Maria noticed something they clearly hadn't. Every tree they cut, every vine they severed, every piece of undergrowth they destroyed was part of an interconnected ecosystem that had spent millions of years learning how to hide, adapt, and survive. As night fell, the jungle came alive. The Korthak had brought powerful floodlights and thermal sensors, but they were designed for conventional warfare. They could detect large heat signatures and movement patterns, but they couldn't interpret the 1,000 small signals that made up jungle life. Every monkey that called, every bird that rustled, every insect that buzzed was part of a complex communication network that the aliens couldn't begin to understand. Maria's team, however, could read the jungle like a book. "Motion sensors are going crazy," Kowalski reported, monitoring the alien base through electronic surveillance equipment. "They're tracking everything that moves, but they can't tell what's a threat and what's just wildlife." "That's going to work in our favor," Maria replied. "Chun, start mapping their patrol routes. I want to know every pattern, every timing sequence." "Ramirez, you know this area better than anyone. What are our advantages?" Ramirez smiled, his teeth white in the darkness. "Commander, these aliens have never seen anything like this. The Amazon isn't just a forest. It's a living entity. Every plant, every animal, every microorganism is connected. They just dropped into the most biodiverse environment on Earth, and they're treating it like empty space." He pointed toward the alien base, where the floodlights created harsh circles of illumination surrounded by impenetrable darkness. "Look how they've positioned their lights. They're creating perfect blind spots everywhere the light doesn't reach. And those energy weapons of theirs, they're going to attract every predator within 50 kilometers. The electromagnetic signatures will confuse local wildlife, make them aggressive." Maria was beginning to form a plan. "Thompson, what kind of heavy weapons did we bring on this mission?" "Standard load, Sergeant. 2 M4S with attached grenade launchers, 1 M249 saw, my .50 cal sniper rifle, and enough C4 to level a small building. Plus whatever we can improvise." "It's not enough firepower to take them head-on," Maria mused. "But maybe we don't need to fight them directly." She turned to her team, her voice low but determined. "New mission, gentlemen. We're going to teach these aliens why humans have been the apex predator on this planet for the last 100,000 years." Inside the Korthak base, Commander Zelkar reviewed the day's progress with growing satisfaction. His engineers had established a secure perimeter, set up communication relays, and begun preliminary resource surveys. The jungle around them was rich with mineral deposits and rare elements that would make this operation highly profitable for the Empire. "Sir," reported scanner operator Vixtal, "we're detecting multiple small heat signatures moving around our perimeter. Probable indigenous wildlife. Maintain standard protocols, Zelkar replied without looking up from his tactical displays. Our shields and weapons can handle any primitive predators this world might produce. The scanner operator hesitated. Sir, there's something unusual about the movement patterns. They appear almost coordinated. Zelkar finally looked up, his compound eyes focusing on the sensor displays. The thermal readings showed dozens of small contacts moving through the jungle, but the patterns were indeed strange. Too organized for random animal movement, but too small for any significant military force. Probably pack hunters, he decided. Many primitive worlds develop coordinated predator species. Nothing our automated defense systems can handle. What neither Zelkar nor his scanner operator realized was that they were looking at the first phase of human psychological warfare. Maria's team had spent hours moving through the jungle, deliberately triggering the alien sensors with carefully timed movements. They weren't trying to hide. They were trying to condition the Korthak to see human-sized heat signatures as just another part of the background noise. By midnight, the alien security teams had grown so accustomed to small thermal contacts appearing and disappearing around their perimeter that they barely glanced at the sensor displays when new ones appeared. That's when Maria struck. She moved like a shadow through undergrowth, so thick it seemed impenetrable, every step calculated to avoid the scattered sensor pods the Korthak had deployed. Her target was an isolated communications relay positioned 50 meters outside the main base perimeter. The aliens had placed it there to extend their communication range, but they'd also made it vulnerable. The Korthak sentry posted to guard the relay stood nearly 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton gleaming with integrated technology. Energy weapons were mounted on his shoulders, and his helmet displayed a constant stream of tactical information. By any measure, he was a formidable opponent. But he was also standing perfectly still in a pool of artificial light, his attention focused on the technological displays inside his helmet rather than the environment around him. Maria had learned long ago that the most advanced technology in the universe was useless against an enemy who refused to fight on your terms. She didn't try to match the aliens' firepower or technology. Instead, she used the jungle itself as a weapon. The blow dart hit the Korthak in a gap between his helmet and chest armor, delivering a concentrated dose of curare extracted from local plants and refined in her kit's portable chemical lab. The alien warrior had approximately 30 seconds to wonder why his neural pathways were shutting down before he collapsed. Maria was on him immediately, her knife finding the precise spot where his exoskeleton joints connected. The Korthak armor was designed to stop energy weapons and projectiles, but it had never been tested against a blade wielded by someone who understood anatomy. The sentry died without making a sound. Working quickly, Maria stripped the alien of his weapons and communication equipment. The energy rifle was too large for her to wield effectively, but its power cells would be invaluable. More importantly, the communication device would allow her team to monitor Korthak tactical frequencies. She dragged the body deep into the jungle, where the natural decomposition process would eliminate the evidence within hours. By dawn, there would be nothing left but equipment that could be explained away as mechanical failure. The Korthak would wake up tomorrow morning with their first gap in the perimeter, their first equipment malfunction, their first taste of what it meant to fight an enemy who made the rules instead of following them. Back at the observation post, Maria's team received her signal and began the next phase of the operation. They had 6 hours until dawn, and 6 hours to begin the systematic psychological dismantling of an alien invasion force. The Korthak had come to Earth expecting to face a primitive species that would either surrender immediately or meet them in conventional battle. They had studied human military capabilities and concluded that Earth's forces, while more advanced than some worlds they'd conquered, were no match for Korthak technology and firepower. What they hadn't studied was human history. They didn't understand that humanity had spent 50,000 years learning how to kill things bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than themselves. They didn't know about Vietnam, where technologically superior forces had been defeated by an enemy that refused to fight conventionally. They hadn't studied the Pacific theater of World War II, where American forces had perfected jungle warfare against a fanatically determined enemy. Most critically, they didn't understand that for humans, the jungle wasn't an obstacle to be overcome. It was home. As dawn approached, and the first phase of Maria's plan neared completion, the Korthak slept peacefully in their advanced base, protected by energy shields and automated defense systems, confident in their technological superiority. They had no idea that they were about to receive an education in what humans called unconventional warfare. The lesson would begin with the sunrise, and it would be written in blood and shadow among the trees that had watched humanity evolve from prey animals into the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. The war for Earth was about to begin, but it wouldn't be fought the way the Korthak expected. It would be fought the human way. Dawn broke over the Amazon with the usual symphony of sounds that had echoed through these trees for millions of years. But this morning carried something new. The Korthak base hummed with alien technology, its energy shields creating a faint blue shimmer in the humid air. Inside the perimeter, Commander Zelkar received his morning briefings with growing annoyance. "Sir, we've lost contact with Perimeter Sensor Station 7, reported his communications officer. The equipment appears to have suffered a complete systems failure during the night. And Sentry Post 12 is reporting equipment malfunctions as well," added his security chief. The guard on duty claims his helmet sensors went offline for approximately 40 minutes before coming back online. Zelkar's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Primitive world conditions affecting our equipment," he diagnosed. "The humidity levels here are higher than anything in our operational parameters. Double-check all weather sealing protocols and replace any components showing degradation." What the Korthak commander didn't know was that the equipment failures were the first fruits of a plan that Maria Santos had been developing throughout the night. Her team had spent hours studying the alien patrol patterns, weapon signatures, and communication frequencies. Now they were ready to begin the systematic psychological warfare campaign that would turn the jungle itself into their greatest ally. 3 kilometers from the base, Maria crouched beside a massive cecropia tree whose trunk had been hollowed out by centuries of insect activity. Inside the natural cavity, she'd established a hidden command post complete with captured Korthak communication equipment, satellite uplink to human command, and enough supplies for a week-long operation. "Status report," she whispered into her encrypted comm. "Jackson here. Demolition charges are in place along their supply route. Pressure activated, designed to look like the ground just gave way under their heavy equipment." Kowalski reporting. "I've tapped into their communication network using that captured alien gear. They're using a pretty basic encryption algorithm, and their operational security is terrible. They're broadcasting troop movements, supply schedules, even their commanders' personal conversations in clear text. Chun in position. I've got Overwatch on their main entrance, and I've identified at least 12 different vulnerabilities in their perimeter setup. Ramirez here. I've been tracking their patrols, and they're making every mistake in the book. They're cutting trails straight through the jungle, moving at the same times every day, and they have no idea how to read the environmental signs that would tell them they're being watched. Thompson ready. I've got 3 different sniping positions prepared, with escape routes that lead through terrain their equipment can't navigate." Maria smiled grimly. Her team was ready, but, more importantly, the jungle itself was becoming their ally. Every hour the Korthak spent in this environment, they became more predictable, more vulnerable to the kind of warfare that had been perfected in these very trees decades ago. "Gentlemen, we're about to teach these aliens the most important lesson in human military history," she said softly. "Superior technology means nothing if you don't understand your enemy or your environment. Phase 2 begins now." The first strike came at 0800 hours, when a Korthak supply convoy attempted to move heavy equipment along the crude road their engineers had carved through the forest. Jackson had spent 3 hours the night before carefully undermining a section of the trail, weakening the ground just enough so that it would collapse under the weight of alien vehicles but hold firm under lighter loads. The lead vehicle, a massive hover transport carrying fabrication equipment, settled into the carefully prepared trap like a stone into quicksand. Within seconds, 20 tons of advanced alien technology had disappeared into a sinkhole that seemed to be a natural geological formation. Emergency response team to Sector 7 crackled over the Korthak communication frequencies that Kowalski was monitoring. "We have a vehicle down, requesting immediate recovery support." But when the recovery team arrived, they found more than just difficult terrain. Chen had positioned himself in a tree overlooking the trapped vehicle, and his sniper rifle spoke with surgical precision. Not to kill, that would have revealed human involvement, but to disable. Energy cells exploded in showers of sparks. Communication equipment failed in cascades of electronic feedback. Hoverlift generators suffered what appeared to be random mechanical failures. By the time the Korthak engineers managed to extract their equipment, they'd spent 6 hours and significant resources recovering machinery that now required complete overhaul. More importantly, they'd learned that this jungle was far more dangerous than their initial assessments had suggested. Analysis indicates unstable geological conditions throughout this region. The engineering report concluded. Recommend alternative transport routes and increase structural support for all future operations. Commander Zelkar studied the reports with growing frustration. His forces had been on this world for less than 24 hours, and they were already behind schedule. What should have been a simple resource extraction operation was turning into a complex engineering challenge. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're receiving a priority communication from the Dominion's edge. Commander Vextar requests an immediate status update." The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing Vextar's imposing form on the bridge of the flagship. His 4 arms were crossed in a gesture that Zelkar recognized as barely contained impatience. "Report, Commander. Our orbital sensors show your advance has stalled completely." "Temporary delays, sir," Zelkar replied, trying to project confidence. The jungle environment presents some unexpected challenges, but nothing our forces can't overcome. Elaborate. Equipment failures due to environmental factors, some geological instability affecting our transport routes, and indigenous wildlife that's proving more problematic than anticipated. Vextar's compound eyes fixed on his subordinate with cold intensity. "Commander, we have conquered 47 star systems. We have faced everything from crystalline hive minds to plasma-based energy beings. Are you telling me that trees and animals are slowing down a full Korthak battle group?" "Of course not, sir. It's simply a matter of adaptation. Give me 48 hours to adjust our operational parameters." "You have 24, Vextar replied coldly. "If your forces cannot handle primitive jungle conditions, I'll replace you with a commander who can." The transmission ended, leaving Zelkar staring at the now-empty display. He turned to his staff with renewed determination. "Double the security patrols. I want every square meter of our operational area mapped and secured. Deploy additional sensor networks, and increase the firepower authorization for all security teams." What Zelkar didn't realize was that his response was exactly what Maria had been hoping for. Every additional patrol gave her team more opportunities to study Korthak tactics. Every new sensor network provided more equipment to capture or sabotage. Every increase in security measures made the aliens more predictable, more bound by rigid protocols that could be exploited. The second phase of Maria's plan began that afternoon, when Ramirez initiated contact with something the Korthak had completely failed to account for: the local human population. The Amazon wasn't empty wilderness, despite what the alien reconnaissance had suggested. It was home to dozens of indigenous communities, small settlements, research stations, and isolated homesteads. People who knew every river, every trail, every hiding place within hundreds of kilometers of the invasion site. People who were very, very angry about aliens destroying their home. Ramirez moved through the jungle like a ghost, following paths that existed only in the memories of those who had been born here. His destination was a small village 20 kilometers from the Korthak base, where his cousin ran an eco-tourism operation for adventure travelers seeking authentic jungle experiences. He found the village largely deserted, its inhabitants having fled deeper into the forest when the aliens arrived. But Miguel Ramirez, his cousin, had stayed behind with a core group of local hunters and guides. Miguel, Ramirez called softly as he approached the concealed camp where his cousin and his friends had taken refuge. Carlos. Miguel emerged from the undergrowth, embracing his military cousin warmly. We saw the alien ships. Are they? They're real, and they're here to stay unless we do something about it, Ramirez replied. I need your help. Miguel's expression grew serious. Tell me what you need. What followed was a conversation that would have chilled the Korthak commanders to their chitinous cores, had they been able to understand it. Ramirez wasn't just recruiting local support. He was activating a human network that had been perfecting guerrilla warfare in jungle environments for generations. Miguel's eco-tourism operation included former Special Forces operators, indigenous hunters whose families had been fighting invaders for 500 years, environmental activists with extensive knowledge of jungle survival, and adventure guides who knew every square kilometer of the region. Within hours, Maria's 6-person Special Forces team had become the core of a resistance network numbering in the dozens. Local hunters provided intelligence on animal behavior that could be used to mask human movement. Environmental activists contributed detailed knowledge of plant toxins and natural camouflage techniques. Former military operators brought additional tactical expertise and equipment. Most importantly, the indigenous community leaders provided something that no military academy could teach: a spiritual connection to the land that transformed the jungle from an environment to be conquered into an ally to be partnered with. The trees will tell us when the metal skins approach, explained Yuanawa, an elderly shaman whose grandfather had fought rubber tappers, gold miners, and cattle ranchers in these same forests. The animals will carry our messages faster than their flying machines. The plants will hide us better than their magic cannot see. That night, the expanded resistance network launched the third phase of Maria's plan, turning the jungle's ecosystem into an active participant in the war. Thompson had spent hours studying the electromagnetic signatures of Korthak equipment, learning that their sensors operated on frequencies that coincided with the bioelectrical fields of certain Amazon species. Working with local biologists who had fled deeper research stations, he developed a plan that was both brilliant and completely unprecedented in military history. Using captured alien energy cells as power sources, the team began setting up bioelectrical amplifiers at strategic points around the Korthak base. These devices boosted the natural electromagnetic fields produced by electric fish in the nearby rivers, creating interference patterns that looked like random environmental noise, but actually masked human movement. Simultaneously, Chun and the local hunters began a program of behavioral modification with the region's wildlife. Using a combination of pheromone attractants, audio recordings, and carefully placed food sources, they started directing the movement patterns of local animals to create distractions at precisely timed intervals. The results were immediate and devastating to Korthak operational efficiency. Every time an alien patrol ventured into the jungle, they found themselves surrounded by animals that behaved in completely unpredictable ways. Howler monkeys screamed at random intervals, making vocal communication impossible. Insects swarmed in perfectly coordinated clouds, despite being species that never normally gathered in large numbers. Birds performed elaborate distraction displays that kept alien attention focused away from human infiltrators. Sir, our security teams are reporting extremely unusual animal behavior throughout the operational area, reported the Korthak security chief. Our xenobiologists are baffled. The local fauna appears to be exhibiting coordinated responses that shouldn't be possible without some form of central intelligence. Zelkar studied the reports with growing unease. Define coordinated responses. Yesterday, Patrol Unit 4 was investigating a sensor anomaly when they were surrounded by approximately 300 primates that appeared from nowhere, began making noise that rendered their communication equipment useless, and then disappeared as suddenly as they had arrived. Today, Patrol Unit 7 reported that they were forced to abort their mission when thousands of insects swarmed their position in perfect formation, despite the fact that our entomologists insist those species never engage in coordinated behavior. And 30 minutes ago, Patrol Unit 2 reported that they were stalked by a jaguar that seemed to be deliberately herding them away from a particular section of the forest. When they attempted to investigate anyway, they were attacked by what they describe as every venomous snake in the jungle, appearing simultaneously from multiple directions. Zelkar felt a cold sensation that his species associated with impending danger. Are you suggesting that the local ecosystem is somehow organizing itself against us? I don't know what I'm suggesting, sir. But our patrols are becoming increasingly ineffective. Our equipment failure rate is climbing exponentially, and my security teams are requesting hazard pay for jungle operations. The situation deteriorated further as night fell, and the fourth phase of Maria's plan commenced. Jackson had spent the day planting specialized charges throughout the Korthak perimeter, but these weren't conventional explosives. Working with local chemistry knowledge and alien technology, he'd created devices that produced very specific effects. Some charges released concentrated plant hormones that triggered aggressive growth responses in jungle vegetation. Others created subsonic vibrations that mimicked the territorial calls of large predators. A few generated electromagnetic pulses that interfered with alien sensor networks while appearing to be natural atmospheric phenomena. The combined effect was that the jungle around the Korthak base seemed to come alive with hostile intent. Vines began growing at impossible speeds, tangling alien equipment and creating natural barriers overnight. The sounds of massive predators echoed through the darkness from multiple directions, despite the fact that thermal scans showed no large life forms. Electronic systems failed in cascading patterns that suggested environmental interference rather than sabotage. By dawn of the second day, the Korthak base looked less like a military installation and more like a beleaguered outpost under siege by the natural world itself. Commander Zelkar stood in his command center, staring at status reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about military operations. His forces were losing effectiveness at a rate that would be catastrophic within days, but he couldn't identify any actual enemy activity. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving another priority transmission from the Dominion's edge." This time, Vextar's image appeared with 4 arms clearly positioned in a combat-ready stance. "Commander Zelkar, explain to me how a full battle group armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy is being defeated by trees." "Sir, we're not being defeated. We're experiencing unusual environmental resistance. But silence." Vextar's mandibles spread wide in a threat display that made Zelkar step backward involuntarily. "I'm deploying additional forces to your location. Battle groups 4 and 9 will provide support, and I'm sending War Commander Thexval to assume operational control." The transmission ended, leaving Zelkar to contemplate his failure. In 47 conquered systems, no Korthak force had ever required reinforcement to handle a simple resource extraction operation. High in a canopy above the alien base, Maria Santos watched the additional dropships descend through her binoculars and smiled. The Korthak were responding exactly as she'd hoped. They were escalating instead of adapting, adding more force instead of changing tactics. They were about to learn that in jungle warfare, more troops often meant more targets. And Maria's team was just getting started. War Commander Thexval descended from his transport with the confidence of a warrior who had personally overseen the conquest of 7 worlds. His exoskeleton bore the scars of battles fought in vacuum, underwater, and in atmospheric conditions that would have killed most species. Standing nearly 4 meters tall and Equipped with weapons systems that could level city blocks, he represented the absolute pinnacle of Korthak military evolution. He was also about to encounter something no Korthak had ever faced before, an enemy that had spent millions of years learning how to kill things bigger and stronger than themselves. Commander Zelkar. Thexval rumbled as he strode into the base command center, his four arms gesticulating dismissively at the status displays. Explain to me how you've managed to lose ground to a jungle. Zelkar's mandibles clicked nervously. War Commander, the situation is more complex than our initial intelligence suggested. The local ecosystem appears to be the ecosystem. Thexval's voice carried the kind of controlled rage that had preceded the orbital bombardment of rebellious worlds. Are you seriously telling me that plants and animals are presenting a military challenge to Korthak battle groups? The equipment failures alone have reduced our operational efficiency by 60%, Zelkar continued desperately. Our patrols are reporting coordinated animal attacks. Our sensor networks are being disrupted by unknown electromagnetic interference, and our supply lines are compromised by unstable terrain. Thexval studied the tactical displays with the practiced eye of a seasoned military commander. What he saw defied every principle of warfare he'd learned in 3 centuries of conquest. The Korthak forces were deployed correctly, their equipment was functioning within normal parameters, and their tactical doctrines were textbook perfect. Yet somehow they were losing. Show me the operational recordings, he commanded. The holographic displays came alive with footage from the previous day's operations. Thexval watched patrol after patrol encounter what could only be described as coordinated resistance from the natural environment. Animals that should have fled from superior predators instead attacked in waves. Vegetation that should have remained static instead grew in patterns that blocked movement and disrupted equipment. Weather phenomena appeared with timing that seemed almost deliberately tactical. War Commander, the base's senior xenobiologist, Subcommander Hector, approached hesitantly. I've completed my analysis of the local ecosystem, and I'm afraid the situation may be even worse than we initially thought. Explain. This jungle isn't just a collection of individual species, sir. It's what human scientists call a superorganism, an interconnected network where every plant, animal, and microorganism communicates and coordinates through chemical signals, electromagnetic fields, and behavioral patterns that we're only beginning to understand. Thexval's compound eyes fixed on the scientist. You're telling me the entire jungle is a single intelligent entity. Not intelligent in the way we understand it, but reactive, adaptive. And, according to our analysis, it's treating our presence as an infection to be eliminated. 3 kilometers away, Maria Santos crouched in her hidden command post and listened to the Korthak communications with grim satisfaction. Through captured alien equipment and careful intelligence gathering, her expanded resistance network had assembled a complete picture of the enemy force structure, their capabilities, and, most importantly, their limitations. Kowalski, what's your analysis of their new commander? Classic Korthak military doctrine, the communications specialist replied. He's escalating force levels and implementing more aggressive patrol schedules. But, Maria, he's making the same fundamental error they've all been making. Which is, he's treating this like a conventional military operation. He's trying to control territory through overwhelming force, but he doesn't understand that in jungle warfare, controlling territory is meaningless if you can't control the environment itself. Maria nodded, and he's about to learn why humans became the dominant species on this planet. The Resistance Network had grown far beyond her original 6-person team. Local indigenous communities had contributed hunters and trackers whose knowledge of the jungle was genetic, passed down through thousands of generations. Environmental scientists from research stations provided technical expertise about plant chemistry and animal behavior. Adventure guides and ecotourism operators brought intimate familiarity with terrain that appeared on no military maps. But the most important addition to Maria's force was something that couldn't be quantified in traditional military terms: the partnership with the jungle itself. Working with indigenous shamans and field biologists, the human resistance had achieved something that no military academy in the galaxy would have believed possible. They had established a genuine communication protocol with the rainforest ecosystem. It wasn't communication in any conventional sense. The jungle couldn't speak or plan in the way humans understood those concepts, but it could react, adapt, and respond to stimuli in ways that, when properly coordinated, became indistinguishable from tactical intelligence. Yuwanawa has established connection points throughout the operational area, reported Ramirez, referring to the elderly shaman who had become their primary interface with the local ecosystem. Every major tree, every river system, every animal migration route is now part of our intelligence network. How does it work? Maria asked. Combination of traditional knowledge and modern technology. The shamans understand how to read the natural signals that indicate disturbance patterns. The scientists can translate those patterns into tactical intelligence we can use. And the indigenous hunters know how to manipulate the environment to create specific responses. Maria studied the tactical map spread before her, but it wasn't like any military map she'd ever used. Instead of showing troop positions and equipment deployments, it displayed the living network of the jungle itself. River systems that could be used to transport personnel and supplies. Tree canopies that provided concealment and observation points. Animal territories that could be redirected to create distractions or barriers. Most importantly, it showed something the Korthak couldn't even imagine: how the forest ecosystem could be turned into the most sophisticated weapons system ever developed. Thompson, what's the status on our heavy weapons integration? Complete, Sarge. We've managed to mount the captured Korthak energy weapons on mobile platforms using local materials. Range is limited compared to their original specifications, but firepower is incredible. More importantly, the power signatures look like natural electromagnetic phenomena when we fire them through the bioelectrical amplifier network. Chun, medical status? Working with local medicinal knowledge, I've developed treatment protocols for wounds that will be completely invisible to alien medical scanners. Plus, some of the plant-based stimulants these people use are more effective than anything in our standard combat pharmacology. Kowalski, intelligence update. Their new commander is implementing classic escalation doctrine. Double the patrol frequency, triple the firepower authorization, and quadruple the surveillance protocols. He's also requested orbital bombardment clearance for any sector showing continued resistance. Maria's expression hardened. Orbital bombardment. Standard Korthak response to prolonged ground resistance. If they can't control an area through conventional means, they sterilize it from space. This changed everything. Maria had been planning a campaign of attrition that would gradually convince the aliens to abandon their position. But if they were willing to destroy the jungle from orbit, her strategy needed to become much more aggressive. New mission parameters, she announced to her team. We're no longer trying to discourage them. We're going to destroy them. The final phase of Maria's plan began that evening, when War Commander Thexval personally led a massive patrol into the deepest part of the jungle, determined to identify and eliminate whatever force was responsible for his troops' humiliation. Thexval had handpicked 50 of his most elite warriors for this operation, equipped them with the most advanced weapons in the Korthak arsenal, and planned a search pattern that would systematically examine every square meter of suspicious terrain. What he found instead was a masterclass in why humans have been Earth's apex predator for 50,000 years. The attack began so subtly that the Korthak patrol didn't even realize they were under assault until it was too late. Vines began moving across their path, not aggressively, but just enough to alter their route in ways that seemed natural. Animal calls shifted their attention at precisely timed intervals, preventing them from noticing tripwires and pressure plates that had been positioned with surgical precision. War Commander, reported his communications specialist, we're experiencing intermittent signal loss with our command base. Appears to be natural atmospheric interference. What Thex Val didn't know was that Kowalski had been using captured alien technology to create targeted electromagnetic interference that mimicked the bioelectrical signatures of thunderstorm activity. To the Korthak sensors, they were simply experiencing bad weather. The first casualty occurred 30 minutes into the patrol, when Scout Zeklar stepped onto what appeared to be solid ground and plunged into a concealed pit lined with sharpened stakes. The trap was perfect in its simplicity. Wooden spikes hardened with plant toxins, designed to penetrate the gaps in Korthak armor at precisely the angles most likely to cause maximum damage. But Zeklar didn't die immediately. That would have been too obvious. Instead, he was wounded just severely enough to require evacuation, forcing the patrol to divide its strength and reveal its medical protocols. Medical emergency, position 77 Alpha, came the call over the tactical frequency that Maria's team was monitoring. Scout down, requesting immediate support. The evacuation team that responded to the call never made it back to the base. Chen had positioned himself along their retreat route with a captured alien sniper rifle, and his shots were timed to coincide with the natural sounds of the jungle. To any observer, the evacuation team had simply suffered catastrophic equipment failures in a particularly dangerous section of terrain. War Commander, his tactical officer, reported with increasing concern. "We've lost contact with the evacuation team, and Scout Zeklar's emergency beacon has gone silent." Thex Val felt the first stirring of something he hadn't experienced in over a century of warfare: genuine uncertainty. His forces were taking casualties from an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't target, and couldn't understand. "Deploy Security Squadron Alpha to investigate the evacuation route," he ordered, "and activate full tactical protocols. If there's an enemy force operating in this area, we're going to find them and eliminate them." Security Squadron Alpha, 12 of Thex Val's most experienced warriors, advanced through the jungle with weapons powered and sensors set to maximum sensitivity. They moved in perfect formation, covering every angle of approach, ready to respond to any threat with overwhelming firepower. They never saw the humans who killed them. Jackson's improvised explosives had been placed with the precision of an engineer and the cunning of a man who had spent years learning how to kill people in environments just like this one. The charges didn't create obvious explosions. Instead, they triggered precisely controlled avalanches of deadfall that crushed alien warriors beneath tons of seemingly natural debris. Thompson's sniper fire came from impossible angles, using the three-dimensional terrain of the canopy to create shooting positions that couldn't exist according to conventional military doctrine. His captured alien energy rifle discharged through the bioelectrical amplifier network, making the shots appear to be lightning strikes or other natural electrical phenomena. Ramirez and his indigenous allies moved through the jungle like shadows, using traditional hunting techniques that were older than civilization itself. They didn't fight the Korthak directly. Instead, they herded them like prey animals, guiding them into kill zones prepared by the rest of the team. By the time War Commander Thex Val realized his security squadron had been eliminated, his main patrol was completely surrounded by an enemy he still couldn't identify. "All units, fall back to defensive perimeter," he commanded, but even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The jungle had become a weapon system, and humanity had just demonstrated why it was the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever produced. The final assault came from every direction at once. Plants that had been chemically treated to grow at accelerated rates suddenly formed impenetrable barriers across escape routes. Animals that had been carefully positioned through pheromone manipulation attacked in coordinated waves that seemed impossible without central intelligence. The very air became toxic as Maria's team released concentrated plant alkaloids that bypassed Korthak filtration systems. War Commander Thex Val, veteran of 7 planetary conquests, found himself trapped in a kill zone constructed from materials that shouldn't have been able to threaten advanced alien technology. His weapons were useless against enemies he couldn't target. His armor was irrelevant against attacks that came from the environment itself. In his final moments, As the last of his squad fell to an enemy that had turned the entire jungle into a weapon, HFY achieved perfect understanding of why the humans had become the dominant species on their world. It didn't fight fair. They didn't honor the conventions of warfare. They didn't respect the technological superiority of their enemies. Instead, they made the rules, and they made sure those rules favored them. Back at the Korthak base, Commander Zelkar received the news of HFY's disappearance with the kind of terror that came from realizing you were facing something completely outside your understanding. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely controlled panic, "we've lost all contact with War Commander HFY's patrol. Their last transmission was a request for immediate reinforcement, and then nothing. Deploy all remaining forces to locate and extract the War Commander," Zelkar ordered. But even as he spoke, he knew it was hopeless. The jungle had swallowed 50 of his best warriors without a trace, and now it was waiting for him to send more. High above in the flagship Dominion's edge, Commander Vextar studied the tactical reports with a growing realization that the Korthak Empire had encountered something genuinely new. Analysis he demanded from his tactical staff. "Unknown, sir. We're detecting no significant military activity on the surface, no organized resistance movements, no technological signatures that would indicate advanced weaponry. According to our sensors, the humans have no significant military presence in the operational area." "Then, explain to me how we've lost contact with an entire war group." "We can't, sir." Vextar stood silent for long moments, his four arms crossed in thought. In 47 star systems, the Korthak had never encountered a species that could eliminate their forces without revealing themselves. They had faced technologically advanced civilizations, numerically superior enemies, even entities that existed in non-physical states. But they had never fought humans. "Prepare the planet cracker," he finally commanded. His staff exchanged glances of shock. "Sir, planet crackers are reserved for species that present existential threats to the Empire. This world contains something that can destroy Korthak battle groups without trace, without explanation, and without revealing its nature. That qualifies as an existential threat." But even as Vextar spoke, he knew it was too late. The jungle had already taught the humans everything they needed to know about Korthak technology, tactics, and capabilities. And, more importantly, it had taught the humans how to win. In the depths of the Amazon, Maria Santos stood among the ruins of alien equipment, surrounded by her team and her indigenous allies, and smiled. The first phase of Earth's resistance was complete. The Korthak had come expecting to fight a primitive species armed with chemical rockets and metal bullets. Instead, they had encountered something far more dangerous. Humans who understood that the most advanced weapon in the universe was intelligence combined with adaptation. The war was far from over, but the lesson was clear. Any species that wanted to conquer humanity would have to do it on human terms. And humans were very, very good at making sure the terms favored them. The jungle had spoken, and its message was simple. Earth belonged to humanity, and humanity would defend it with everything they had learned in 4 billion years of evolution. The galaxy was about to discover why humans had earned their place as the apex predator on one of the most dangerous worlds in the universe. And the education was just beginning.